Graybrook was a cold, forgotten town tucked between forest and marshland. The streets were narrow, the houses crooked, and the air always smelled of damp wood. People survived by hunting, gathering herds, or working in the small silver mines outside the village. Among them lived a boy named Elias Ward. His home was a sagging wooden hut at the very edge of town, so close to the marsh that frogs croaked under his window every night. Elias's father, Rowan Ward, repaired old tools for pennies. His mother, Clara, washed clothes for families who barely paid her. Elias grew up in a world where dreams were considered foolish luxuries. No one expected anything more than survival. Yet Elias, from a very young age, had a strange habit. He collected broken lanterns that people threw away. He kept them in a wooden crate under his bed. They were rusted, cracked, or missing glass panels. But to Elias, they were treasures. He believed that a lantern wasn't just a tool to see in the dark. It was a symbol of hope. When he was 10, his father suffered an accident when a heavy mine cart shattered his leg. He became bedridden, unable to work. Elias watched his mother struggle to keep the family alive. She stitched clothes by candlelight until her fingers bled. Elias could never forget the look in her tired eyes. It was a quiet desperation, the kind that eats the soul slowly. One evening, when the oil had run out and darkness filled their home, Elias picked up one of his broken lanterns. He whispered to himself, "There must be a way to fix these, and maybe even make better ones." Elias had no teacher, no guidance, only stubbornness. So he began taking lanterns apart, studying every hinge, every bolt, every flaw. He learned how soot collected in corners, how weak metals bent in cold weather, how glass cracked with heat expansion. His hands were always covered in black dust, and his mother often scolded him for ruining his clothes. But Elias wasn't wasting time. He was learning a craft no one knew could change his life. At 13, he built his first working lantern from scrap. It was uneven, dim, and flickered often, but it worked. He showed it to his father, who lay pale and weak on the bed. His father smiled for the first time in months. "If you can bring light to a house this dark, son," he whispered, "you can bring light to your life too." Those words carved themselves into Elias's heart. He kept experimenting. He saved every coin he earned by delivering herbs for an apothecary. He bought small pieces of copper, thin glass sheets, and drops of lamp oil. Every night he stayed awake, hammering metal, shaping frames, cutting glass. Neighbors mocked him. "Lanterns won't feed your family. Go back to real work." Dreams don't survive in Graybrook. But Elias didn't argue. He worked, he made mistakes, burned his fingers, broke glass, wasted oil, but each failure sharpened his mind. Each setback hardened his resolve, and slowly his lanterns improved, shining brighter, lasting longer, surviving storms. When Elias turned 16, Graybrook faced a disaster. A harsh winter swept through the town, and the old lanterns on the streets cracked in the freezing winds. Darkness covered the roads. People struggled to walk at night. The town council, desperate, called for lantern makers from nearby cities. But travel was impossible due to snow. Weeks passed. Elias saw an opportunity, a dangerous one. He approached the council hall with 3 handmade lanterns tucked under his coat. They glowed with a warm, steady flame. When he placed them on the council table, the room fell silent. One of the elders asked, "Who built these?" "I did," Elias said. They exchanged doubtful looks. "A boy from Graybrook?" "So test them," Elias replied boldly. They did. They placed one outside in the wind, another in the snow, and one under icy water droplets. All 3 continued to burn steadily. The council was stunned. "How did you make them so resilient?" Elias answered simply, "Because I built them for the kind of darkness we live in." That night, they awarded him payment for 20 lanterns. It was the largest amount of money he had ever seen. He ran home, breath trembling, and placed the coins on the table in front of his mother. She cried into her hands, not in sadness, but in relief. But real success was not waiting patiently ahead. The storms only grew. The orders increased faster than Elias could produce. He had no workshop, no workers, no equipment, no savings. To meet demand, he worked through nights, hammering until his arms went numb, cutting glass until his fingers bled. He often collapsed on the floor, waking up cold and stiff. People praised the lantern maker, but no one saw his suffering. No one saw the discipline that carved him into who he was becoming. Still, Elias refused to break. He convinced an old carpenter to rent him a corner of his workshop. For rent, Elias cleaned the shop daily, repaired wood shavings, sharpened tools, and assisted in carpentry work. It was backbreaking, but it gave him space to build lanterns faster. He hired 2 young boys to help pump bellows and polish frames, paying them from his small profits. He taught them everything he knew, and in teaching, he learned even more. Soon, his lanterns were not only lighting Graybrook, but carried on sleds and wagons to surrounding towns. People were drawn to their design: strong metal frames, clear polished glass, and a wick system that burned longer than any other lantern in the region. A merchant from the capital eventually arrived to buy tools from the carpenter. He noticed one of Elias's lanterns hanging near a beam. "Who crafted this?" he asked. Elias stepped forward. "Sir, I did." The merchant inspected it closely. Durable, balanced, efficient. "This is better than anything sold in the capital." "Boy, what do you know of business?" "Nothing," Elias admitted, "but I know how to build light." The merchant smiled. "And light is something people will always pay for." He offered Elias a trade deal: 50 lanterns a month, in exchange for steady payment and long-term demand. Elias accepted. From that point on, the world changed. The workshop grew. His apprentices increased. His reputation spread. But with every step forward, new problems appeared. Delayed shipments, broken materials, stolen goods, jealous competitors, and exhaustion that almost crushed him. One competitor even tried to sabotage him by spreading rumors that Elias used cheap materials. Another bought out his suppliers, leaving Elias with nothing to work with. He felt the darkness returning, the same darkness he had spent years fighting. But this time, he did not face it as the weak boy from the marsh. He faced it as the man who built lanterns that defied storms. He traveled personally to distant villages to find new suppliers. He learned metal forging, wick braiding, and glass crafting on his own, so no one could ever limit him again. He slept in wagons, ate stale bread, and walked miles through mud just to keep his business alive. Pain made him sharper. Struggle made him wiser. Failure made him unstoppable. Eventually, Elias established his own workshop, a tall wooden building with wide windows to let sunlight in. A sign hung above its door: Ward Lantern Company. People traveled from far towns to buy the lanterns, praised for their strength, warmth, and reliability. Miners trusted them underground. Farmers used them at dawn. Sailors carried them at night on open waters. Elias grew wealthy, not with sudden fortune, but with slow, relentless effort. He rebuilt his family home. He paid for his father's medical care. He hired dozens of workers from poor families. He created a warm, safe place where people earned honest wages. People said, he didn't just build lanterns, he built light for everyone. Years later, when Elias stood on the hill overlooking Graybrook, watching dozens of his lanterns glowing across the village, a young boy approached him. "Sir," the boy said, holding a cracked lantern, "can you teach me to fix this?" Elias smiled gently. "What is your name?" "Jonas," the boy answered. "And why do you want to learn this craft?" "Because I don't want to stay in the dark forever," the boy whispered. Elias felt those words strike deep, because he once had the same thought. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Come tomorrow," Elias said. "If you are willing to work harder than anyone else, I will teach you everything I know." As the boy ran off, Elias looked at the lantern shining across Graybrook. Bright, steady, enduring. He whispered to himself, "I was born in darkness, but I built my own light. Anyone can, if they refuse to give up." Elias Ward's journey became a legend, proof that skill can rise above poverty, discipline can rebuild a broken life, pain can shape greatness. A poor boy's determination can ignite an empire. Where you begin does not define you. What you build does.